Thank you for joining me on the Darren Chatter podcast. I'm going to be reading some of my blog posts that I have written so that you can consume this information in an audio format versus reading the blogs if this is more to your liking. I'm going to share with you stories from my past as an athlete, as a coach, as a salesperson, as a business professional, as a VP of sales, everything that I have learned and amassed along the way in my 50 years here on planet Earth. I'm going to hope to share with you in order to help you shorten your learning curve, understand maybe a little different way to look at things, and hopefully learn a few things along the way. So here was the podcast you tuned in for. I hope you enjoy it. Please reach out to me when you can and let me know your thoughts. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me once again. This is the podcast that accompanies blog number 86 entitled Play the Long Game. I think in today's world, this is a topic that bears more focus. Everyone is in such a hurry for everything these days. Some of it, I'm sure, is due to the technology-laden culture that we live in. We're just used to getting things faster and more easily than ever before. While this is great when it comes to ordering a new pair of headphones, it is not ideal when it comes to success in life, as there are no shortcuts. Given my roles as coach and course instructor at ASU, I have the privilege to speak to people far younger than me quite often. I am continually amazed at the level of delusion in increasing number of students and young adults. I am sure that the highlight reel lives that they live through social media is warping their sense of reality. We focus way too much on the biggest of big successes, and we all think that we can write the next big app or create the next Uber for something else and call it a day. These extremely rare success stories of our world are so fascinating because they are so rare and so unique, but they should not be considered the blueprint for a happy life. They should motivate you, inspire you to work super hard at something that you commit to, and aim really big. But the harsh reality is that most of us are not going to have success like that, and certainly not in the short term. You have to learn to play the long game. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this all the time, and I couldn't agree more. He's a great example of putting patience front and center in everything that he does. Your life is a long road, and you need to play accordingly. The analogy that Gary Vee uses for a new grad starting in a business is that it would be like you graduating from college and trying out for an NBA team with no previous basketball experience whatsoever. If you think you can start a business right out of school, having not learned anything through the world of work and through other companies, you're crazy. You're setting yourself up for failure for sure. And he's right. And I know this because I've been there. I have jumped in on a few different entrepreneurial ventures with less than adequate experience, underfunded, and certainly a lack of other resources. And when I did this, I failed. Each time I did this, I failed. I would have been far wiser to learn the ropes from somebody else, and then, once I had everything aligned to hedge my own bet towards success, break away and do my own thing. I was impatient. I didn't want to wait and do it the long way. I wanted to get things done and have the success sooner rather than later. And I certainly paid the price for it. Experience is a great teacher, if you have the time, and when you take the time. The problem is, most people don't. Not really. In the grand scheme of things, you need to accelerate your learning curve as much as possible. Not the process, the learning curve itself. You need to learn as much as you can as quickly as possible and are able to be in it for the long haul with that in mind. Once you have gleaned as much information as possible from somebody else, then you can start from a position of semi-informed. I say it that way for a reason. Nothing you do is going to follow the exact same path of what you learned elsewhere. Starting a business today has new challenges and hurdles that were non-existent 5 years ago. New competition, pivots in the market, changes in attitude and tastes in a fickle consumer world all change rapidly. Remember Tumblr? This social media platform was purchased by Yahoo for $1 billion in 2013. It was just sold or let's say dumped, for $3 million. That's right. 6 years later, it was considered worth a fraction of it once was. Nobody saw that coming 5 years ago. Ask yourself a serious question. Why are you in such a hurry? Do you want to be rich and retired at 28? Seriously, do you? Think about that. You will be bored out of your mind in a hurry if you have no real reason to get out of bed every day. I think a more reasonable goal is to shoot to be happy and free from basic financial concerns. That is a great place to be, but also a very attainable goal at the same time. Once again, as Ask Gary Vee talks about all the time, happiness should be the goal. We need to revamp our thinking on what we are aiming at. I know, I have been seduced by the lure of easy money or a business exit paycheck. It is very attractive, but the road to get there is unpaved, bumpy as hell, and not on any of the maps that I ever owned. I can also speak from experience that I do not want anything. Let me try that again. I can also speak from experience that I do not want anything responsibilities outside my current role as VP of sales in my day job. The founder and CEO of our company has shouldered an incredible financial and emotional burden getting us to where we are today, and I do not want that level of responsibility any longer. I have been there before, and I don't handle it well. The stress is just too much for me, and I don't have the stomach for it. I am well aware of the fact that as the owner, you are on all the time. There is no off switch. As the VP of sales, I get to clock out on Friday and come back to Monday and start again. The owner never gets a break. So are you sure this is what you really want? Do you really want to be in that position, or are you better off in my shoes? If your life is looking like it's going to be centered around a balanced approach of work and play, follow me. If you relish the idea of driving the proverbial bus, fighting every battle to defend what you have, and bear every concern down to the smallest detail, well, then maybe you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur after all. I learned the hard way. I just couldn't cut it. I won't do it again. I like things the way they are, and now that I have finally figured this out, I'm playing the long game for me in the best manner possible. I am way better off as somebody's right-hand man than I am running the business. I like fly fishing and other things too much to never have an off switch. To save yourself some real headache, heartache, stress, anxiety, bankruptcy, all of the above, you need to be realistic. Delusion is a serious enemy. You have to know who you are, what you really want, and how to go about it. Remember that Instagram has filters, and nobody ever shows all of the hard times on their social media account. It's a highlight reel to make the world think that they have it all figured out. They don't, and I know that because nobody does. Success doesn't happen quickly. It is a process of experience. Structure your life for the long haul. Assume you are going to be on the planet and working for a very long time. Be patient and learn from others before you dive off a cliff and try to build an airplane on the way down. Get as much knowledge under your belt as possible before you take your shot, and give yourself a fighting chance at success. Figure out what you want your life to be like. If work-life balance is a high priority, entrepreneurship is not for you. It's a 24/7 roller coaster ride, and there is nobody waiting in line to take your place driving the bus. Set yourself up to play the long game and ease your way forward. Learn, absorb, and appreciate the process as you work towards the lifelong goals that you set. Figure out the role that you are best suited for and work towards that. This formula is not a guarantee for success, but it is a realistic play. It is something that most of us can accomplish once you figure out who you really are and what you really want. Don't let the filtered view of the world that you see through your phone dictate your choices. I wish you luck in your endeavors. So some additional thoughts on what I just shared with you. I have a really good friend who's probably a good 20 years older than I am, and I go to him for advice all the time. A story that he shared with me a long time ago, I really took to heart, even though it took me quite a while to implement that into my life. It basically goes like this. He was in the same position I was. He had someone he considered a mentor many years older than him. He went to that person for advice as he was about to enter college and then set up his life moving forward from there. He asked the guy, how do I create the most optimized life for myself? What can I do that's different from what everybody else does to not end up living for 2 weeks of vacation a year, grinding away at my life like so many other people do? The person that he was speaking with shared this piece of advice. Find the lifestyle that you want to live, and then find a profession that affords you that lifestyle. So for him, he chose to go into dentistry. He went to college and went to dentistry school and set up practice in a partnership with somebody, learned the ropes, and then broke away to do his own thing. His goal as a lifestyle was to ski no less than 6 weeks a year. That is a pretty lofty goal for most people, but if you were going to be an entrepreneur, it would probably be out of the question, at least in the very beginning of the process. But for somebody who has a dentistry practice, it's very possible. And here's why. It's easy to align your schedule to allow yourself 6 weeks of vacation time. However, the benefit to him going into this profession was he has other people within the practice who can continue operating the business and therefore having it continue to make money even when he's not around. There are no major decisions to be made when somebody comes in for a routine cleaning. A dental hygienist can handle that without him. So while he's off skiing, he's got other people in his office that are continuing to run the business and make money and take care of the patients that they see. So he figured that out ahead of time, worked towards putting that in place, learned through a partnership in business how to run his own practice, and then eventually set himself up to run his own practice and have a lifestyle that he was looking for. He sets his own hours. He still is taking a minimum of 6 weeks of vacation a year. Some of the time he goes skiing. Some of the time he rides a mountain bike on logging roads in Whistler Park in Banff, Canada. Sometimes he goes on photo safaris all around the world. He's one of the most interesting, well-traveled, and knowledgeable people that I know. And all of that, or almost all of that, stems from the lifestyle that he was smart enough to set up for himself as he entered college. I wish I would have known that in my own career, because I would have been a firefighter who played professional racquetball. That would have changed the course of my life and probably allowed me to enjoy my pro racquetball experience far more than I actually did. By making my passion the one thing that I focused on and tried to scratch a living out of, I added a ton of stress and anxiety and eventually burnout to that process. If I would have been a fireman, I would have had a job that easily paid the bills, gave me the expenses, allowed me to cover the expenses that went along with traveling around the country to play competitive racquetball. I would have been not eating macaroni and cheese 3 days a week to afford the pro racquetball lifestyle, because I certainly didn't win hardly any money in that profession, but my day job would have covered that. And being a fireman, I could have worked 10 days a month and fulfilled my day job obligation, rearranged my schedule at any time to accommodate when I needed to be out of town for tournaments, and come back to a job that was waiting for me, steady paycheck, etc., etc. That would have been a much better lifestyle for me in the front end of my career. The other thing that would have allowed me to do was play racquetball as long as I wanted, but after 20 years, I would have had a pension. I could have retired. At the end of my career as a firefighter, I would have gone back to school, gotten a master's degree in business, and ended up as a college professor somewhere. So that means I would have had a pension as a firefighter. I would have had steady paychecks as a college professor, but I would have had summers off. I would have had a month off at Christmas. It would be the ideal lifestyle for the second half or second 2/3 of my life, for sure. That would have been an ideal scenario. And while I wish I could go back and change some of those things, obviously I can't, but I have put into place those same thought processes now, and I am playing the long game moving forward. I don't want to run the company that I currently work for. It has been hinted around that I could move into that position if I chose to, and I do not want the keys to the bus. I want to clock out. I want to take vacations and not have to have my cell phone on me. I want to be able to leave things at work and pick them up when I come back to work and not have my phone on my hip all the time, waiting for something to catch on fire and me having to go solve that problem. I don't want to deal with employees who always have to have me accessible to them. I don't want to worry about the phone line or the electricity coming into the building, going out and shutting down the service that should be a constant 24/7 operation. I don't want any of those responsibilities. I am getting better and better at working remotely and still doing my job at a very, very high level. My goal is to be able to work from anywhere, not just from home, and be able to incorporate into my lifestyle a lot more fishing and travel in general, spending time with my wife, going to different cities and exploring, hiking around all over some of the more famous mountains in the western part of the country, things like that. Those are my goals. And now that unfortunately a bunch of time has passed, but I am getting those things into place now. So, if all goes well for the second half of my life, now that I'm 50, I will have those things in place, and that will be the approach that I want to continue to pursue and operate under from now on. I'm playing the long game now that I have some of the rules finally figured out. So hopefully you can learn a little bit from what I've shared. I'm happy to give some more insight. Feel free to reach out to me. You can go to my website at darrenchatter.com, email me through that, find me on social media at Darren Chatter. Would love to hear from you. If there's anything I can do to help out, don't hesitate to ask. I don't have all of the answers, but I'm certainly willing to share with you what I do know. I wish you luck in your endeavors.